Hello everybody, Ben here, and today I'm going to be doing how to build a model railway part 5, which is track detail and weathering. In this video I add extra details to the track and use paint to weather the track as well. First off, I'm going to be painting my track. It's probably best to take care around point blades to make sure you don't gum them up with paint. It's also probably a good idea to take care of buildings on the layout and probably move them away. The paint I'm using is Humbrol Acrylic Matte 33, Humbrol Enamel Matte 70 and the Humbrol Enamel Matte 119. You can use any of the colour or brands of paint, but for this is what I'm going to be using. For weathering the sleepers, I'm going to be dry brushing them using first off the Humbrol Enamel Matte 70 that you see here. When dry brushing, you get a little bit of paint on your brush, then wipe it on something like a paper towel, then brush it a little onto the sleepers and the ends of them as well if you want to. Then do the same thing over and over again. You can also do it with different colour paints as well, and I've also later on in this video I use it as well with the matte 119. It's probably best to take your time when dry brushing, as it does take quite a long time, but the efforts are definitely worth it, I would say. I'm weathering my track. I give all the sleepers a dry brush, quite heavily I would say, with the Humbrol Enamel Matte 70, and then what I do is go over it with the Humbrol Enamel Matte 70, and then I go over with quite heavily, not dry brushing at all, with the Matte 33, which is the black. Obviously you can do things more or less heavier depending on what you are modelling and where it is. For example, if you're say modelling an area where a loco will be standing for a long time, there generally would be a long more mess there, I would say. There'll be a lot more mess there, which means you do heavier weathering, and it also depends what traffic's on your line. If you've got heavier traffic, then you do more weathering. If you've got lighter traffic, you do less weathering, and so on and so forth. Modern image, then it's probably best to weather your track a little bit lighter, as the trains nowadays are a bit cleaner than ones that are steam age. If you are also weathering or modelling a piece of track or tracks where trains will be stood for a long time, it's probably best to weather that piece of track there. It's a bit heavier as well. What I do once I've finished weathering on my track is I like to then add some detail with some like old rails or whatever. What I'm doing is cutting up some old track. This is just some old rusty points that I've had laying around for a while, and I'm just slowly snipping it apart and slowly just getting the rails. You can also use some of the sleepers as well if you want to, and then use them as well for extra details, and we'll come on to that later on in this video. I'm doing the same thing here with this piece of rail here, which once again is old, and it's probably best to use older rail unless you have none. Then you probably, and if you've got some new rail spare, then you might want to use them. It's also recommended that you should wear eye protection while you're using this, as it does sometimes fling around and it could hit your eye, and that might do damage to your eye as well. What I've finished up with now with all these rails, there's a few more here than I actually need and that I'll use in the video, but I'll cover this all in a future video at some point where I'm going to use these as well. I've also got a lot of other things like these sleepers here. Apart from those sleepers, I've also got this pack of concrete sleepers made by Pecco. I couldn't find any of the wooden ones, but these were in stock on Hatton, so that's where I got them from. You get 24 for £1, so I don't think that's too bad value if I'm honest. I'm going to use these as extra detail if I want to as well. You get a lot, so you might not need these as well. And these are for Code 55 track, I think, but unless you want to use them actually for track, then you won't need to worry about them anyway. This is them now painted up. They are first off painted in the Humbrol Enamel Matte 70 and then given another paint colour over, which is a bit lighter, in the Matte 119, and then that's it for them to give a uniform texture with the actual rails themselves. And then I've painted the spare rails here in exactly the same thing, but then I added the colour Matte 100 as well. This is me sticking them down. This is just simply PVA glue, and I'm just sticking them down, as well as using some Woodland Scenics clump foliage. I have a static grass applicator. You can also use that instead of the clump foliage, but at the moment I don't have one. Here is everything completed. Obviously what you want to do before running any trains on it, on the layout, is to actually clean all the rails as well, so they're nice and shiny like you see here, and also to clean the sides of the rails as well if you've got any paint on them, especially on the inside. But maybe that if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. I don't think it affects the running too much, but it depends if you want to or not. And because I'm using screws, I've also painted over them in black, so they're less noticeable and less shiny, which is kind of an interesting thing, I think. And I think it turned out pretty well. I hope you enjoyed this video by me. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below with some video ideas or feedback. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.